everybody, we are back. Today is the day after I finished the rough draft for the sequel to Thick as Blood. At the end of this video, I'm also going to be telling you guys the title. Finally, I'm really excited for it. But before we get there, I'm going to give you guys a hint and let that like soak in. The initials for the book are T-A-S. What could it be? I don't know. Also, yes, I washed my hair. No, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, this is the result, so. For the first part of today's video, I thought I would go over my outline with you guys. I think it's only fitting because one of the very first videos I ever posted was me outlining for Thick as Blood. And my process now is pretty similar to that. I have made some changes and it's evolved. I have written 2 books since then, so things have kind of been more tailored to me. And I've just tweaked it a little bit, you know, to make it work better. So if you're maybe struggling with outlining or you want to try, I don't know, a new method, or you're just curious as to how I'm doing it, then I figured could make this video and we could chat about it. If you remember, my original outline for the rough draft, the very first draft of this book, was basically one giant text document. It was just written out in blocks of text. It was not very detailed. I think I prepared myself as much as I possibly could before I started writing. There was a lot of things that I did research and plan out very thoroughly, but for whatever reason, the outline part was just more organic, I guess you could say, than detailed and specific. So for my second draft, we're gonna slowly be inching it under the microscope, really picking it apart, establishing consistencies. I just love editing and this is just like my time to shine. So in addition to showing you guys my outlining process for this draft, I figured I would also give you a look at my character profiles because those have changed a lot over the past couple years. I think having an outline and knowing your characters really well can do nothing but help you develop the story further and make it more interesting and more cohesive. In addition to those things, I'm also going to touch a little bit upon the other sort of bits and bobs that I'm doing for my story. These extra pages, extra notes aren't gonna be very universal. They're more specific to me and my story, but I figured everybody's story is different. If you need some extra things along with, you know, your outline and your character profiles, then like you need those extra things. So keeping all of that in mind, we're gonna go ahead and jump into screenshot mode. I have my laptop here in front of me. You can't see it, but it's right here. And we're just gonna capture that screen and I'm just gonna walk you through how we're gonna do this thing. Alrighty, well this is it. No, I'm just kidding. This might look familiar. This is actually the outline that I used for Thick as Blood. I figured I would pull it up just to show like some differences and stuff between what I used then and what I'm going to use now. They're really similar, but some things I just tweaked a little bit. So for Thick as Blood, I used Microsoft Word to do my outline. I've been getting this question a little bit, like a lot recently. I do write my stories using Microsoft Word. I don't know if it's just because I use like a dark mode, as you can see here, that it like looks different, but yeah, I just use Microsoft Word and I like using like the dark mode. It's just nicer on the eyes to me. And for Thick as Blood, I did everything on Microsoft Word, so outlines and character profiles and all that stuff. However, this past year when I went back to school, I started getting really familiar with OneNote. It's what I use to take all of my school notes on and to keep all of that stuff together, and I really enjoy it. I like how you can just put everything in like one folder and you don't have to have, you know, multiple documents and try and go through them all. They're really just all right there and it's a lot more versatile. I now created, we're gonna pull it up, a whole new section for this story. So as you can see over here on the left, I have just like some basic notes. I have my school stuff in a whole other like notebook. So you have like your notebooks up here, and then you can have your sections here, and then further into those you can have your pages. So right now on my TAS page, I have outline tab, characters, family tree, timeline, and world. It's just so nice to have all of this stuff together. So as you can see in here, I also have created these blocks. I haven't started filling them out yet. Like I said, today is literally the day after I finish the first draft. Each of these is gonna be a specific scene. I like writing my stuff scene by scene. It just makes sense to me, especially since I don't have my chapters mapped out yet. So as you can see here, just close this to make this guy a little bit bigger. Boop. I created a table. OneNote is awesome. You can insert tables, you can draw. That's pretty much it. No, I'm just kidding. But you could do like a lot of like fun stuff in here because I do take all of my notes, like I handwrite them out. So for here, you can also just switch to handwriting mode, and each one is like a whole block, so you can just move it wherever you need and you can make it bigger or smaller. It's awesome. For each scene, I have the characters that are going to be in the scene, I have characters that are going to be mentioned in the scene, and then I have the word count. But I have the date that the scene is taking place, the setting, useful information like the weather, specific attributes, sort of keywords, because another great feature of OneNote that Microsoft Word has as well, but really cool with OneNote, is that you can keyword search. It can also recognize your handwriting as a word. It doesn't always work, but it's really useful when it does. And then all the way to the right, we have description of the scene, you know, what's going down, what the purpose of the scene is, not just literally what's happening, but also because I am writing in first person, it's good to know what's going on in Charlotte's head. This is really getting specific into it. To do this for a rough draft for me is like way too daunting. It's way too much because I am writing everything out for the first time. But using this for a second draft is just really, really helpful because you are able to dissect your story. So next we have the character profiles. Again, I used this sort of table set up here. Oh, another great thing about OneNote is if you go to draw and you go to this little double thingy, you can move stuff up and down. I love that. For the table here for characters, each character, they're gonna have where it says character is gonna be their name. So the thing is, as writers, we know our main characters. You know, we know our main characters, you know, best closest friends, or like their really close relationships, secondary characters, the antagonists. Like, I feel like we come to know them really, really well. And a full-on character profile might not be so necessary for your primary characters, but once you start getting out of that main character's like bubble of people and you just sort of start expanding their world and adding in these other characters, it can be a lot, especially if you're trying to describe a character and flesh them out in your head when really in the story they're only mentioned a couple times. I think it's good to flesh out as many characters as you can, like keep a handle on them, but you know, when you're writing a story, you don't need to know all that information. So this is where the character profiles come in. I can give them backstories and I can really like get into who they are, and just knowing that and keeping track of that will help me when I write them in the story. Because in the story, like, you're not gonna care like how old are they, what do they do for a living, like, you know, it doesn't matter. To put all of that information and to keep it in your head and try and keep track is just too much, so write it down. Even though I will probably make one of these for every single character, including Charlotte, my main character, these are mostly for like the secondary characters, and especially in this book, a lot of new characters are getting introduced, and a lot of those characters are going to become, well, not a lot of them, but a couple of those characters are going to become close with Charlotte and her inner circle. For each one, I'm going to put their age, physical characteristics, their scars. This is not so much a universal thing that you would include probably in your story, but for my story, it's very relevant. And so much so that I set it apart from physical characteristics, because in my stories, every scar has a story, and I need to be able to quickly reference that while I'm writing. And then obviously the relationship to Charlotte, gotta know who these people are and why they matter. Familial relationships, I have no idea if I spelled that word right, but basically, again, this is something that's very specific to my story that might not be relevant to your story. But for this second book, family and their relationships are playing a very important role, and you'll see why. Dresses, how they dress, introvert or extrovert. This I think is like an optional one for people. For me, if I know somebody is an introvert or an extrovert, or an introvert with extroverted tendencies, or an extrovert with introverted tendencies, it just makes them so much more clearly defined in my mind. Habits, wants and needs, and then backstory and additional notes. This is a lot shorter than my original character profiles, which I got it off a line, I think, and I tailored it a little bit, but it's so like dense, more so than I need. Some people like might want to just go ham and go for it, but for me, the stuff that I can fit into this block is just gonna be enough. And yeah, you know, some characters are gonna have more, some characters are gonna have less. You know, by the time I get to the outermost reaches, like there's some characters where Charlotte is gonna know them by name, or even like less than that. She's gonna know they exist, but maybe not even know their name, or maybe not even mention their name, because she never actually like meets these people. Basically, they're just gonna get a name, an age, and you know, familial relationships and like a couple stuff like that. Moving on, we're gonna skip over these and go to the timeline. So for me in this story, as well as Thick as Blood, I found it really helpful to have a timeline. This story is starting in August, not necessarily August 2034, but I knew I wanted August 1st to land on a Tuesday, and I basically just went into like the calendar on my computer and searched every year until I found one where August started on a Tuesday. And it just so happened to be 2034, but we're not actually in the year 2034. This is just going to be helping me for reference. For the rough draft, I have a rough timeline, and for the second draft, I know I need to set specific days. This won't necessarily pertain to everybody, but in my story, Charlotte is starting college, and so I need to keep track of the weekends and the school days. And if you scroll down here, you can see that the book is going to end in April of 2035, and I need to know those, sorry, not 2035, just April. And I want to make this as realistic, I guess, as I can. So for this calendar, I'm going to take all the dates and stuff from my rough outline, and I'm going to plonk them down here on the calendar days, and then from here I'm going to go back up to my outline, and I'll be able to just plug in a date, and bada bing bada boo. Another really useful page that I'm gonna need in this story is the family tree page. As you can see, when I said familial relationships are gonna be really important in this story, this is why. More specifically, like extended family and Charlotte's clan that she sort of comes into in this book. So I have everybody up here, and then even further, there are certain people that I need to keep a track of, so I'm just going to make a little chart for them down here just for easy reference. Hello, Future Winter here. So at the time that I recorded this video, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to put in like the world page, but now that I've played around with some ideas, I have a better idea of how I want to format the page. So we're just gonna look at that right now. Went with the same box style, the same table up in here, so we'll just get rid of that. So each one is gonna have the setting, so like the name of the place. This is gonna be pretty broad, you know, it's gonna be as narrow as like Charlotte's room to as broad as like the whole city. Because there are so many new locations in this book, and because we're gonna revisit these locations several times, I wanted to really map out where everything was in my head, because we kind of like jump around a bunch. So this is why I'm doing this this way. All right, so we have the setting up top, and then simple description of what the place is, what it looks like, where it's at, scenes that take place here. I'm gonna be replacing these numbers with like the scene names that I'm gonna give them, just so going back through for reference or whatever, I can see like, okay, so they came to like this restaurant 5 times, you know, stuff like that. And then underneath is where I'm going to be putting, excuse me, why are they coming after me? Why are they texting me? Ah, it's popping up everywhere, stop! Can't see that, rude, okay, sorry. Like I said before, we are being introduced to a whole new city, and this city I'm pretty much making up from scratch. I need it to fit my needs, and while it is going to be based on a city I'm actually familiar with, I'm going to make it my own, and it's going to have new names and all that stuff. I've already drawn out a map on that binder, in that binder that you might have seen a couple times. Basically just gonna render my own little map and stick it in here, as well as maybe inspiration photos and, you know, stuff that I could pull off of Pinterest. Yep, just thought I would add that in here while I'm here and while I figured it out before I finished editing the video that you're watching. So with that being said, we're gonna jump back to your present, my past winter. So yeah, I hope that helped you out a little bit. At least, you know, gave you like an idea of maybe a new outlining technique or a new way to like look at your characters and try and shape them and get to know them before you even like write them into the story. So now on to the real reason why you're here. Drum roll please. The title to the sequel to Thick as Blood is Tight as Skin. Ooh, goosebumps. Yep, it's called Tight as Skin. I absolutely love this title. It is so fitting and I can't wait for you guys to like see why. And I knew this was gonna be the title of this book since I was outlining for Thick as Blood. As soon as I knew that I was gonna have 3 books in the series, I automatically just like went for the names, and Thick as Blood came right to me, Tight as Skin came right to me. The third book in this series, that one was a little bit more difficult, and I do have an idea in mind. I don't know if it's gonna be the final one, but that's so far down the road. We're not even gonna talk about the third book. Like, I don't even want to get ahead of myself, but major goosebumps. So yeah, hope you guys like the title. If you don't, then too bad. This is hopefully going to shape up to be a really great book, and I'm really excited about it. And again, I just want to thank you guys for like hanging out and coming along with me and being here through 1, 2, 3 books already. And yeah, I just want to let you know that I really appreciate it. I'm gonna end this video here. All the links to my stuff will be down below, including my blog, my books, blogs, and where you can buy them. Hope you guys are staying safe out there, and I will see you very, very soon.